Alright gang, today we're going to be reacting to a few things that Derek from More Plates More Dates said about steroid use. The reason why this is important is because I get multiple messages from lads every single week across TikTok, Instagram and Facebook asking me if they should hop on steroids. Now, I'm not a steroids expert. I have been around them pretty much my entire life since I first started training in bodybuilding gyms. I've had friends, family members, colleagues who've taken them. So for the last 20 odd years, I have been around steroids and I have seen the side effects that they can create. I've also seen the benefits that they also give. So although I've never taken steroids myself, I do feel somewhat qualified to speak on the subject. And when I'm getting these young lads who are like 19 years old, 20 years old, messaging me, asking if they should hop on the trend, it's kind of sad because I believe the majority of lads hop on gear for the wrong reasons. Now, if you want to do it for career purposes or to try and compete or reach a high level in a sport, I can understand it from that perspective a little bit, but we still have to contemplate the potential downsides to that. Okay, it's all well and good reaching your maximum muscle potential and gaining another 10, 20 kilos of muscle and doing it in an eighth of the time it would take you to do natural. But at what cost does this bring to you? So big shout out to Chris Williamson. He's got an incredible podcast and in the last few years, he's really started smashing it and having some incredible guests on. He had Derek from More Plates, More Dates on and he spoke about TRT and steroids. So let's watch this first clip.
Are the health risks that guys should consider if they're thinking about going on TRT? Someone comes to you and says, hey man, I'm whatever at an age where I feel like this is something that I want to do. What should I be concerned about?
First off, TRT is testosterone replacement therapy. This is not steroids, so to speak. Although technically speaking, if someone is on TRT, they are not natural. But all TRT does is bring your testosterone levels back up to normal physiological levels.
Well, it depends the context in which they enter into that. Because again, if you don't actually need it and you get on it, you could be making yourself less healthy if you're already perfectly functioning, top tier, and you're just doing it because, I don't know, you want to look like Liver King or some shit. Like, I don't know.
So we are talking about TRT here, not heavy doses of gear, not Trembolone, not Sus, not Decker. And even Derek, who is pretty super knowledgeable about steroids, has just said that simply doing TRT can actually damage your health if you do not need it. So what do you think's happening to all these young lads who are hopping on heavy doses of gear when they don't need it? They are destroying their health long term.
If you do need it and you're clinically deficient, you are, and again, not medical advice, but in general, you're going to be more prone to things like cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration, etc. So it's kind of like, if you actually clinically need something, to then say, what is the downside to TRT? It's like, what is the downside of not being on TRT at that point, potentially? That's the kind of how I would frame it for the actual clinical utility of it in a real deficient setting. It's kind of like, what could you be staving off by using it in a responsible way?
I've had a couple of clients in the past who've had to jump on TRT and it's actually helped them in so many ways. That's because they actually needed the TRT. They were going through mental health problems, feeling really down in the dumps and depressed, which low testosterone can create. The strength in the gym was through the floor. They had no energy, no sex drive. And these are real problems that low testosterone can cause. So these are some prime cases where your quality of life is actually worsened by not being on TRT and having low testosterone. And even as Derek said, when you've got low testosterone, you can actually have an increased risk for cardiovascular disease. So yeah, we do know there's a correlation between taking steroids and having a higher risk for cardiovascular disease. So if you are low, it's good to get your test topped up.
Would you be surprised if the volume of drugs that it's likely that he's taken wouldn't have taken a little bit of time off his health span?
Chris is talking about Liver King here. Obviously, we know that Liver King was taking around $12,000, $15,000 worth of steroids on a monthly basis. I actually done a video explaining the whole Liver King steroid situation. You can watch that up here. Liver King goes on about being the best version of yourself, being healthy, being there for your family and the 9 ancestral tenets and not polluting yourself with all this processed food, yet at the same time is putting 15 grand's worth of artificial steroids into his body on a monthly basis. This is why I say don't listen to fitness influencers. Liver King was lying to everyone's face on the major A-player podcasts. He stood by the fact he's never done steroids. Even I was a little bit like, maybe he's never done steroids. And then I'd check myself back into reality and say, shut up, Shaun. Of course he's done gear. Look at him. So when you've got these young 20, 21-year-old lads who are making absolute bank from all these supplement company sponsorships on TikTok and Instagram, you think they're going to have any integrity and tell you the truth? Of course not. They're going to lie through the teeth. As I always say, lying is incentivized within the fitness industry. Am I the only one out here who's actually speaking some goddamn truth?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's definitely not conducive to longevity.
Yeah.
The bigger you are, the more muscle you have. Okay, this is too vague of a statement because I was about to say if you have too much muscle, you're just going to die quicker. But in general, humans who are bigger and have more demands from their organs to support their infrastructure are going to live a shorter amount of time in general. Like a small, tiny Asian woman is probably going to outlive the jacked brontosaurus human that's on a bodybuilding stage.
So this is true. If you are an absolute mass monster and you've got a lot of muscle on your frame, that's a lot more of a strain on your body. You will not live as long, even if you're natural. So if you're a natural 300 pound, 150 kilogram monster and you've never taken any gear in your life, the chances of you outliving someone who is just lean, athletic and weighs 75 kilos less than you, it's very slim. The chances of you dying first are a lot higher. And it's the same reason why taller people don't live as long. All these 7-foot plus giants don't actually really live that long. So even just by the metric of getting bigger in general, understand that that does put more of a strain on your body and you will shorten your lifespan.
Why?
Because of the stress and taxation it takes to support the demands of that tissue. So, and also it depends how regulating you are of things like blood pressure. Are you letting it get out of whack? Do you have a resting heart rate of like, are you like borderline tachycardia all the time with 100 resting heart rate and you're never getting to sleep because you're so jacked up on androgens or like whatever? Like there are so many things that play into it. It's multifactorial for sure. But in general, if you are just and again, this isn't to say, because there is definitely a push in the longevity community to be protein deficient and be as small as possible and be frail and just live a terrible life, but live to 100 plus. Like there needs to be a happy medium, in my opinion, for a high quality of life that's also trying to live as long as possible with that high quality, because you're going to die eventually. And do you want those years to be, frail, like barely fucking functional in a chair? Probably not. So there's definitely a happy medium. But in general, the more you go super physiologic, the less healthy it is in all areas.
Don't be fooled by all the glamorization of steroids on TikTok and Instagram, where people are coming out and now their whole identity is the fact that they take tren. I'm sure people could say the same about me. Oh, your whole identity is not taking steroids. When it's not that at all. It's just, I believe lads should be educated and make better decisions when it comes to taking steroids. And for the most part, chase athleticism, looking good, being aesthetic, feeling confident, improving your confidence with girls, looking good on holiday. And last but not least, living longer, because you're eventually going to have a family and you want to be there to see your kids and your grandkids grow up. See, a lot of these bodybuilders say that they're completely healthy just because they get the bloods checked, but there's a lot of other factors like Derek just talked about. What's your resting heart rate? Are you even sleeping at night? It's common knowledge that trenbolone, so it's the strongest steroid out there as far as I'm aware of, correct me in the comments if you want, it stops you from sleeping, it gives you insomnia. Not to mention that as you start packing on the mass, so more muscle mass and more fat mass, as your neck gets thicker and you have more muscle mass on your torso, you can start developing sleep apnea, which can actually kill you. Imagine being in your late 20s, early 30s, or even your 40s having to wear a machine over your face. Now, I understand sleep apnea can be caused by a lot of different factors, but taking steroids, getting stupidly big, you're only increasing your risk of getting these things.
That's a really good take, and I totally know what you mean with regards to the balance between longevity, amount of years, and quality of those. Mm-hmm. Do you want to feel good, perform well, be able to do a variety of tasks, and be able to live life to its fullest, or do you want to permanently be in this ambient anxiety about whether or not your oxalate level has gone through the roof because you didn't eat the right type of spinach this morning?
This is exactly what I say. You've got a spectrum. You've got the longevity community here, and then you've got the bodybuilding, extremist, steroid-taking community over here. It's all about finding a happy medium. You dive too much into the longevity stuff, and you end up having no life, and you live life like a monk, pretty much. But you go too far over towards this end of the spectrum, and you live like a king with all that muscle mass, but then you end up taking 20 years, 30 years off your life. If I was to put myself anywhere on that spectrum, I would probably be more towards the longevity side, but not completely detached from the bodybuilding side. Yes, I want to add more muscle to my frame. It's been a very long time since I've done strictly bodybuilding training. So at the moment, I'm going through a 24-week bodybuilding bulking program, which if you want to get a hold of, check out my Natural Physique Academy down below. It's the maximum hypertrophy training program within my academy. But I don't want to shave years off my life just to have better arms and better delts. I also don't want that extra muscle to come at a cost of my athleticism. Over the next couple of years, I want to have a few kickboxing fights. I still feel like I've got that fire inside my belly. I've still got the skill, dexterity, coordination and reflexes there, so I know that I'll do really well in my kickboxing fights, and I don't want any bulky muscle to really get in the way of that. I naturally have a leaner, lighter physique. If I was to take steroids, no matter how many I was to take, I haven't got that type of physique that would really bulk out. So for the sake of a little bit more rounded deltoids, a little bit more traps and upper chest, it's not worth shaving 10, 20 years off my life. I've got too much to lose.
You would be lucky to make it past 45 years old. if you were doing full tilt bodybuilding the entire time.
You mean like you'd be dead at 45?
Potentially, yeah. Like if you were going hard from like teenagehood to 45, blasting every single off season, weighing up to 300 pounds, you know, cutting down to, you know, 260, 270, stand on stage, you know, sometimes less. It depends on the height of the guy, whatever. I think the top guys at the sport, like I would be impressed if they came out 45 years old, retired, and were like still lived a normal duration of life.
So let's say that someone hasn't dropped dead at 45. I'm going to guess in terms of health outcomes, being able to live a normal life which isn't assisted with a ton of drugs on the outside, is that a risk as well?
If somebody is full tilt, maintaining these high body weights perpetually and doing it for, you know, 10, 20 years. Like,
and probably predisposed to,
yeah, like some guys will drop in their 20s when they are in this in pro bodybuilding.
This is totally true. You're seeing so many bodybuilders die at such young ages, anywhere from mid-20s to mid-40s. You're not an old man if you're in your 40s. If you're lifting weights and doing something athletic and looking after your health, you should feel quite relatively young in your 40s. And my mission is to really help some of you young lads out there gain a little bit of perspective. You might feel like how much muscle mass you've got really makes a difference in this world, but it truly doesn't, because you're seeing these kids on TikTok and Instagram who are absolutely jacked and they're 19 years old. Doesn't mean that you need to be that way. I've made a very successful career out of fitness as a personal trainer for 12 years and a gym owner. A lot of people might look at me and compare them to the lads on TikTok and say, well, Shaun doesn't look like him, yet you don't know. I could be more successful than that person who you're comparing me to. That person might have 100,000 followers, yet I might have actually helped more people directly than that person. So don't measure yourself based on how much muscle you've got. Should you gain muscle? Yeah, 100%. Build muscle, get athletic, look better in your t-shirts, feel confident next time you're in Ibiza and Vegas. Do all that, but don't risk your health. I promise you, by the time you hit 30 years old, you've met a girl, you start thinking about kids, your whole perspective will change on this. And I know a lot of lads out there who've taken gear and then regretted doing it, or have came off it completely now and have said, I'm never going back on it. It's just not worth the side effects. So if you're watching this and you're contemplating going on gear, just try stay natural, get as strong as you can, take up a martial art, and I guarantee that will give you so much more fulfillment than trying to look like one of these fitness influencers, just always trying to get a big chest. And if you know anyone out there who's contemplating getting on the gear and you don't know how to tell them, listen, this is a bad idea, share this video with them. Hey, I just want to say thank you for all the love on the channel recently. We went from 1 to 6,000 subscribers in pretty much no time at all. We've just passed 1 million views on the channel in the last 28 days. You guys are killing it right now. I really want to build this channel around a good, authentic message of staying natural, becoming the best man possible in business, fitness, confidence, relationships. Let's keep pushing it. We'll get a Discord going soon. Like and comment to help push me in the algorithm a bit more, and there's loads of training resources in the description. Thanks for tuning in as always, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.